On this episode of the Mom View, we're going to be talking about the weaponization of government. All those of us here on the couch have been called domestic terrorists. I'm sure many of you have because you are moms who are concerned about your children, the future of our country, and our freedoms being stolen away from us. That is what we're going to be talking about today. You can catch this show and any show at themomview.com and make sure and follow us at The Real Mom View on Instagram. And we want to hear from you and your Mom View. So make sure and reach out to us and tell us how you feel about any of the topics that we talk about today or on any show, again, at themomview.com. And we'll be right back with this conversation on the weaponization of our government. And we're back on the Mom View with our friendly moms on the couch.
Hey.
So glad you can be with us today. You know, Representative Jim Jordan is just one of the members of Congress who has been talking about the weaponization of government. In fact, he was so concerned about how we've been weaponized, they put together a whole entire committee in Congress to address this. And Jim Jordan spoke about this in Congress last year, 2023, as they opened up the committee. Here he is.
It's not a ploy when the Department of Justice treats parents as terrorists, moms and dads who are simply showing up at a school board meeting to advocate for their son or daughter. It's not a ploy when the FBI pays Twitter $3 million, not one, not two, $3 million to censor American citizens. It's not a ploy when the Department of Homeland Security tries to set up a disinformation governance board, because we all know that the Department of Homeland Security can tell what's good speech and what is bad speech, what's I mean, you got to be kidding me. This is about the First Amendment, something you guys used to care about. And I'd actually hoped we could get bipartisan agreement on protecting the First Amendment, the 5 rights we enjoy as Americans under the First Amendment. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble, right to petition the government, freedom of press, freedom of speech. Every single one's been attacked.
You know, when you make it about the Constitution, you just can't lose that argument, right?
He's
And
so good.
He is.
So
I just
good.
love
He's a
him.
good statesman, for sure. A statesman,
He
for
is.
sure.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because there is the politician who's all about himself, all about the money, all about the power, and then there are the statesmen who are there willing to take the hits to do the right thing.
And you know what's
He's
interesting?
one of them.
There's not a lot of them, which
No, there aren't.
is wild, right? You would think that every representative that is in Congress actually does represent the people, their constituents. That's not the case. That's not the case.
So I've had so many moms who have reached out on so many levels. But the fact that it starts at the school board, we've literally had moms being pulled out of the school board meetings by law enforcement officers, sometimes in handcuffs,
Oh, yeah.
for reading what their children are being exposed to in the school or addressing concerns that they have. And that's the weaponization of government. Doesn't just start at the federal government. It's like all the way down and from the bottom up.
And then they changed the rules, right?
Right.
So now, before they used to give you 3 minutes to give your opinion. Now they're reducing it to if more than 25 people sign up, then each one gets like 50 seconds. Something ridiculous that you can't even say your name in 50 seconds.
So we have, of course, J6, and we have all the people who are still in the gulag from that.
Right. Terrible.
And then just the other day, I got a phone call from one of the moms on our team. It's just amazing how we get these stories. Her hairstylist styles the hair of someone.
And so on and so on and so on.
Right. It's how we find out about these things. And this woman has been arrested. If you guys remember, during the 2020 campaign, they had the Biden-Harris bus that was going across the country.
Right.
Well, they had these caravans of people who were in their trucks and their cars with big Trump signs on their cars and trucks. And those people are now being arrested for election interference. So if that's the case, why wasn't the Biden bus then election interference, right?
Right.
I mean, this is
Right.
absurd. It's not only weaponization of government, it's the weaponization of government against certain individuals.
Right. Very particular, very targeted, and very discriminatory towards those who are conservatives. I mean, it doesn't go the other way. It just seems to be can't come at the conservatives. They can say whatever they want, but if you're a conservative or a Republican or whatever it is, you don't agree with them, all of a sudden you are the only bad guy in the house, and that's not right.
And, most of the people in this country are neither Republican or Democrat.
Right.
So but they're all common sense.
Right.
And it's coming against all of us.
Right.
And that's why there's so many people who are rising up and saying, no, we're done with this. And I mean, I've heard so many, mostly men, who are saying if this continues, there will be a civil war in this country. And our goal, I would think, as women, is to keep that from happening.
Yes.
Let's win on ideas, so we
don't
don't
want
have to have the guns, because our men are ready to go with their guns.
But it is really important that we do something about it. Why? Because this is, again, not an isolated American problem. The world is dealing with this. We can see Germany trying to pass laws where conservative people cannot go to Germany to visit. Right? If you're an anti-rights, which is what they call us, right? An extremist conservative, right? A MAGA, which is what they call people that are in common sense, right? You will not be allowed to visit Germany. Mexico is trying to implement almost similar laws if you're against anything to do with the LGBTQ, whatever other letters added to this. Yeah. Same thing, right? And this is happening in many other countries. So this is why it's so important that we need to stop. Right. We have been the country that has been defined by freedom of speech.
I was never afraid of my government. I don't ever remember that being an issue. And now I'm just like, I don't know who I trust. And that's really scary, isn't it?
Well, it's what they're coming against. It was
coming from a Mexican, I can tell you, very, very scary to be afraid of your government.
If you come from those countries, So on January 5th of this year, 2024, we had Joe Biden, who came out and gave his first campaign speech, and it just infuriates me that he did it at Valley Forge, where the blood of patriots still is spilled all over that ground. And he had the audacity to talk about the democracy and everything else. First of all, we don't have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic, a representative republic. This is not a democracy. We have a democratic system when it comes to voting, but we are a representative government. And the reason why they keep saying democracy, democracy, democracy all the time is because they're trying to get rid of the republic. They want to get rid of the electoral college. They want to get rid of everything that makes sure that our voice counts, including the flag. So in his speech, everything was about mega, and he hid behind these 4 letters. And I keep telling people, stop using the word mega. It's the letters mega. It's cute. It's, whatever, but it's a lot harder to attack Make America Great Again.
Yes.
But this is exactly what they are doing. And it makes it easy to do it when you hide behind MAGA. So in 2020, when the country was burning, you dealt with this directly. It's a perfect example of what it is they're trying to destroy when they're coming after the flag.
So all the BLM riots were happening, and right in our area, all of a sudden, the police are coming by. They're all moving towards the mall by our house. And, Twitter now is like lighting up. They're like, oh, there's going to be a riot over here. They're going into the neighborhoods. They're going to go after the people with flags. And, my kids are saying, hey, they said they're coming after the people with flags. And, Dad and I are like, the flag's staying. And not that our kids wanted to take it down. It was just more that the fear of it.
Right.
If you were waving a flag during BLM, they might target your home because you're patriotic. I mean, they were looking to destroy, and you didn't know who they were going to destroy or how or what. But it created us so much fear with those riots. They were planning on coming into neighborhoods and causing all kinds of problems. And if you had a flag, you could be a target.
Barack Obama started this back in, right after he was elected, when the big Tea Party launched it. He launched, part of the reason was because people were already concerned about some of the things that were being said. The person that he put in charge of Homeland Security, there was a letter that was released that said, who is it that are domestic terrorists? It was mothers, it was grandmothers, people with Bibles, guns, retired military, former military service members.
Anyone that had the name Patriot or Constitution or...
That's exactly what it was. It had the whole entire list of who was an enemy of the state. And we're all on the list.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because there's this something that was released earlier after it was the vote for the Ukraine bill, the spending bill that just passed. It was $1.2 trillion that our government decided to pass and to print. And it didn't have anything It didn't have anything to do with protecting America or anything to do with protecting American culture or our border or anything putting America first. It had everything to do with the weaponization of government and putting our money to other countries. And this is something that came out the day after this was passed through Congress. And it says, the launch of the National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center will provide our partners across the country with valuable resources to keep firearms out of the hands of individuals who pose a threat to themselves or others. The establishment of this center is the latest example of the Justice Department's work to use every tool provided by the landmark Bipartisan Safer Communities Act to protect communities from gun violence. Okay, first of all, it's not gun violence. Right? If you are hit by a car or you are in a vehicular accident, they don't call it car violence, right? If you're stabbed
Or
and it's
knife
a crime,
violence.
it's not
or,
knife
right,
violence.
Bike
It's
violence.
Or rock violence.
Right, or
They throw a
rock
rock at you, that
violence.
was rock violence.
Or chair violence. Like it's the crazy person that wants to kill someone. That's what it is. They are trying to all this is red flag laws. If you are considered one of the extremists or terrorists that is on the FBI watch list now, being as parents or a gun owner or someone that is a patriot or
Who
someone
decides?
Right, exactly. Who decides? The Biden administration, who apparently thinks that they can be all three branches of government all in one. Which they sit and they turn and they say that President Trump, when he gets in office, he's going to prosecute his opponents, or he's going to, arrest people that don't agree or align with his values or his position. That's literally everybody that has voted for this man. That's everybody in this country that has voted for him, and they are doing exactly what they're saying the other side is going to do. So. It's
scary times. And if you are, on the other side, if you are conservative, if you believe in America's values, if you are patriotic at your heart, and you will stand for the Constitution, you become an enemy. That is wrong.
If you're Christian, if you have faith, right? Faith is what tethers you to hope. It's what tethers you to...
You care about your kids.
Right. You care about your kids. You care about education, quality education.
You're willing to stand up. You're willing to speak out. All of a sudden, you're the enemy as well. I mean, when I was on Will County Board, they all came after me with pitchforks, because of being a conservative and being supporting our president. I mean, it's amazing. Or they'll dox you on Twitter. They'll do all kinds of things.
Of course, we're considered their enemies. We don't fit their agenda, right? We're willing to fight back. We're willing to push back, and we're willing to rescue our children from all this nonsense. So we don't fit their agenda. It's a worldwide agenda called 2030. We know that it's a new world order. They call us crazies when we were talking about this a few years ago. And now they released it. Now they even have their little circle colors, right? And each color and what each means, right? So we don't fit their agenda, and that's it. I mean, we know as Christians that eventually in biblical times we will be thrown back to the lions, and we're willing to go there.
And I think, too, for the moms that are watching, and it's unsettling when you start talking about not trusting your government or the government not being for us, possibly against us. When we hear Sherronna's story here tonight or this afternoon, it's shocking what they will do and what they can do. But I think as long as we unite together and we stay focused and provide answers and solutions and educate one another, it's going to be okay. Yeah. God wins in the end.
Yes,
Kimberly always says.
Don't let
fear. We're going to win a whole lot of battles between now and then. This is a true fact. I mean, we do know that God wins in the end. Yeah. This is not a war of outcome. It is a war of casualties. And I mean, my personal mission, I know a lot of what we do here at the Mom View and at Moms for America is to limit the amount of casualties. How do we do that? By informing and empowering.
That's it.
And that's the whole reason. That's the whole reason we do this.
And uniting, because that's exactly what the other side doesn't want. They don't want us to be united.
They have to divide. They cannot conquer unless they divide. That is historical fact.
That's what that flag does too.
That's right.
Right? Our color purple too.
Yeah. That's right.
Moms for America, our color purple. What does it stand for? It's red, white, and blue combined. And that is what really does unite all of us, is that American flag.
That's right. I think that, and we're about to hear Sherronna's story. We're so excited to have Sherronna Bishop on our couch today. She is going to be joining us. She's on our team. She is our election security specialist. She also is known as America's mom. And what she went through, people who go through the kind of things that she's gone through, or some of us have gone through, you could easily just go, you know what, I'm done. And a lot of us do. But I really want it to encourage the moms out there to know that you are not alone. And the thing that the dictators, the tyrannical warlords, whoever they happen to be, our own government right now, the thing that they fear the most is a peasant uprising.
Yes.
And what they're seeing right now, and what's even more scary than a peasant uprising is a peasant uprising of moms. So we are coming. They see us coming, and they fear us. And
Yes, they do.
united together, we are a powerful force.
sure are.
So we will be right back on the Mom View to welcome Sherronna Bishop and hear her story and what we can do to protect our rights. We'll be right back.
Do you think America is having an identity crisis?
Yes, very much so. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
There's a lot of targeting of conservative children.
That they're coming after the children. It's like, you know what? We have to do something. This is war.
Professors and students are trained in a particular kind of way, and that there's indoctrination that takes place that you're not aware of.
All the curriculum was dumbed down, and we moved away from teaching knowledge, facts, and information, and instead inculcated, indoctrinated kids with attitudes, values, and beliefs that most parents don't believe and don't want their children believing.
The globalists that want to reshape the globe are a elite group, a small group of gatekeeper elites.
Our children are being formed, they're being shaped by a system that is actually designed to turn them away from God, to turn them away from the principles that are at the foundation of our country, really even to turn them against their families.
That the condition of the land is always directly related to the condition of God's people's hearts. And so we're now maybe facing national judgment.
Now what we're up against is the establishment. We see that we need to have some kind of a healthy revolution. We would always say a nonviolent revolution, but there has to be a revolution. Otherwise we're going to go down, because these foxes are part of a world order. They're globalists, they're not Americans, and they'll sink this ship.
Just think of the power of those three words, just a mom. You are fighting for something that means more to you than anything in the world, your children.
There are patriots like you and me fighting against the globalist agenda in order to preserve our republic. I want you to meet them and be inspired. Are you ready? Let's go.
I have a great friend here with me on the couch. Sherronna Bishop is here. She is from our team, as I said. She is our election security specialist, and she also works a lot with Mike Lindell and a lot of great people out there. But this is America's Mom. She has a whole entire show about America's Mom. And I love the fact that you titled it that, especially when you talk about your story, because it's like, this is kind of where we're all at, is what we care about. And then, you had the weaponization of government. I think you're probably you're the first mom that I know of that had the FBI bang down her door. Been several since, but.
Well, two things. One, at that time, I did not know that Moms for America existed, or I would have already been knocking on your door trying to figure out how I could do this in my own state. And secondly, we, in 2019, when bad legislation started coming down, we were just trying to figure out how to awake the moms, because I knew, like you have always known this last 20 years, that mothers were the key to solving these big problems, especially of government, of laws coming after our children. Literally, government really coming to destroy the innocence of our children and separate parents from children. That was my number one priority. And I think what we ended up experiencing was that government does not like it when you're able to make headway, when you're resonating with regular, everyday people who are not political, who don't even affiliate as a Democrat or Republican. They just love their kids. And once they realized that there were laws being passed that were violating the innocence of their children, that were separating children from their parents, that were giving the state more authority than the parents, they became awake, and they wanted to know, how do we stop this? And so that's what we began doing in Colorado in 2019. We did had a lot of fun. I learned a lot in a short amount of time about how this stuff really works. We got a lot of great people elected. We flipped 13 school boards in 2020, 2021. and even had a congressional race that we had a tremendous victory over a 10-year incumbent. Just a lot of amazing victories were happening.
They don't like that.
They don't like that.
I guess you figured that.
We
figured
did.
that out.
Yeah, we absolutely did. And at the core, what happened was when you have bad officials that you supposedly have voted in and they're not representing the people, you have a responsibility and an obligation to start calling them out publicly. The thing that I think Americans really need to remember is that most of the people you see out on the front lines right now, they didn't start with a bullhorn.
No.
They started by making phone calls to that representative. They went to the office, they held meetings, they begged, they asked, they implored, they even tried to come alongside. But at the end of the day, those elected officials would not listen. They would not represent their people, they would not stand by them, and they kept passing legislation that was hurting and harming our families. And we've seen that nationally.
Right.
Because then COVID happened. Right? And we saw people that we thought were supposed to be on the side of the Constitution, that understood fundamental rights that God has established and no one can take away, not even during, this pandemic, however people want to view that. We don't lose our rights during that time. And what also made it so hypocritical and really enraged us was that the schools were taking money to advance these COVID policies. It wasn't because they cared about the kids. Cities, counties, the states were all receiving these CARES funding that was about promoting policies that had nothing to do with science and had nothing to do with the security of our kids. And for me, the last straw was watching the police prevent a 5-year-old crying child from walking into a classroom where the door is on the outside of the building because she wasn't wearing a mask, and watching the administrators stand there with their arms crossed, virtue signaling over this 5-year-old child and not letting her into our local, small, little country town school. So those kind of things began to just, they've enraged me. They've made me so angry. My husband worked in criminal justice for 24 years. Before this raid happened on our home, he was actually working in Colorado State Judicial. Literally had taken an oath to defend the Constitution as the supreme law above all else and to serve with that knowledge in his capacity. He was asked during meetings not to cite the Constitution during the time of COVID.
What?
Absolutely. He was given a disciplinary action for speaking at our local school board meeting. And not in that capacity, by the way. He came as a father. We had 4 kids in the school district. And I just knew if we don't hold the line on this, if we don't hold these people accountable and start calling their names out publicly, we're not going to win. We won't. We won't win by silence. We're going to lose by default there. Right. We just have to keep doing what we know we're supposed to do and call them out. So we did that. And in November of 2021, it was November 16th, 2021, it was 9:30 in the morning. I had pulled our 2 littles out. We were homeschooling them, 7 and 9 years old at the time. And there was loud banging on the door. I literally had just pulled a berry cobbler out of the oven. No joke. So I loved that part of the story because I literally was homeschooling, cooking, cleaning, like doing what all American mothers are doing right now at home. And loud banging on our front door. And I kind of froze. I think anybody would. I really didn't know what to do. And had my boys go in their bedroom and just wait for a minute. It probably all told was maybe about 45 seconds. My husband had come upstairs during that time because it was so loud. And I heard them start yelling, "This is the FBI. Open up. We have a warrant." And they're yelling. And my husband's like, "It's going to be fine. Just relax." Because I'm pretty shook. I don't know what they're going to do because I know I haven't done anything. So I'm thinking if the FBI is there, it's because you've committed a crime. I had been hearing about what Merrick Garland had put out, allowing them to go after parents who had held school boards accountable. Of course, we did that. We served cease and desist orders to our school board even. I mean, we had really pushed every envelope there was for the citizen to combat a government that was overreaching and out of control, legally and lawfully, and they did not like it. So I was getting a little concerned that there might be some retaliation, but I did not think the FBI was going to come to my home.
Who would ever think that the FBI would... Okay, just go back to the fact that you're pulling a cobbler out.
I'm pulling a cobbler out.
Just being a mom, doing the regular everyday things, and they're coming and what charges, what could possibly have been the purpose of the warrant?
So once they busted my door in, and by the way, it wasn't even locked.
Okay,
by the way.
I'm sorry. So they didn't even let you open the door.
No.
They just yelled, banged, and then banged on the door.
That's right. Yeah, about 45 seconds in, and my husband went to reach for the door. They took a battering ram to the door, busted it open. They never tried the knob. It wasn't locked. And they had their guns drawn. They had long guns. There was a ton of them. There was about 13 agents representing 4 different states at our home that day. We can't get them to come out for child trafficking on the I-70 corridor, by the way, but they were definitely going to be there for that homeschooling mom to hold her, to make her be accountable, and to terrorize my family. My husband tried to calm them down, and eventually they just pulled us outside of the home. They handcuffed me immediately, took my phone immediately. I tried to call our attorney because I didn't know what to do. And
so you couldn't even film it. The first thing they do.
No.
This is what I've learned. I've learned from a lot of people who this has happened to. The first thing they do is take your phone.
Yes.
And they put it in front of your face if they want the information on your phone.
Yes.
Because if you have the face read, then they can, but they can't force you to push the button. So these things that you have to learn and tell people now. Don't put the face reader on your phone.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a code number, because they can't force you to do that. The fact that we're even having these conversations. Okay, so they took your phone, and then what?
I asked repeatedly for the warrant for about 30 minutes. I kept asking to see a warrant. They refused to show me the warrant. They said they would get it to me when they felt like it. Finally, after 30 minutes or so of clearing the house, my little boys were standing on the step, and my daughter had come up at some point during that time. And I had told her to go get her phone. I needed her to call the attorney because I didn't know what was legal. I knew they weren't acting lawfully. I didn't even know what was legal here with what they were doing because they refused to show me the warrant. So she went to do that, and as she was, one of the agents that was there grabbed her by her hoodie, pulled her down the stairs, 18-year-old young lady, pulled her down the stairs, let her grab her phone, and then pulled her back up the stairs by her hoodie. She was raging mad, took my little boys and went and sat on the couch with them. And I mean, all the while, we're in a small little neighborhood. You have to think about this. Like, all of our kids are growing up together. All of our kids play with the neighborhood kids. Like, they think we're good citizens.
You're wondering what.
And then you have, why do they have the FBI there? Why is the police there? Why is the whole road blocked off, acting as though we were violent criminals? We had no criminal history, obviously, no violent history, no nothing. We had simply been saying, you're not allowed to do this, and we are going to fight to stop you. You're not allowed to abuse our children. And also just the general inquiries into elections. You know, asking, we endorsed candidates, we put our hard-earned money behind candidates, and we saw election results that we did not believe were possible at all. And meddling in elections is not allowed in this country, as you've watched. You talk about major weaponization. Yes, they went after the school board parents, like we've seen with Kelly Walker, the father out of Arizona, Pima County, and many other parents across the country who've just chosen not to be in the limelight because it's very hard. You know, you don't know when they're coming back again. You don't know if they're going to bring more charges next time. Kelly Walker lost his business, had to sell his home, and then the government took the proceeds of the sale of his home without his knowing or knowledge.
And this is because he showed up at a school board meeting.
At a school board meeting and a city council meeting. That's right. And just tried to say you're not allowed to do these things according to the Constitution. So it's been an egregious act, but I think one of the most critical parts that day in my home and my experience was this. When they were at my home for 3.5 hours.
And they handcuffed you, right?
Oh yeah, I stood outside in front of my home. It's all about shaming you and embarrassing you. Everybody's driving by looking at me handcuffed on my front step. Like, it's very much a humiliation ritual. And they hope it's going to be enough so that you won't do anything anymore. It'll be enough to just get you to shut up. When they finally showed the warrant, well, they should have known better. I think by that time I had proven I was willing to go to do what needed to be done. But they finally went and got the warrant. And this is something interesting for people to understand too. Kind of a blanket charge they'll use to get a warrant is conspiracy to commit wire fraud. It's the idea that maybe there's funds somewhere that they're building a RICO case. And saying that you all conspired together to do what, I don't know. But we conspired to do something that they don't like. And it allows them access to everything you have. Your bank accounts, your social media accounts, your stuff, every gadget you own. It allows them access to everything you possess for an unlimited amount of time. Wow. So it wasn't just that day they take your stuff. No, they keep going through your social media forever and ever till they are satisfied. And then they'll close it. Oh, but by the way, they can reopen it again at any time that they feel like they want to reinvestigate you again without your knowledge until Facebook alerts you that a case was just closed on your account again. Well, that's how we have found out about the majority of these invasions of privacy is because Facebook has let us know, or Meta has let us know, that a new investigation was just closed finally. It's the most craziest thing I've ever experienced.
So I remember, it was just before Thanksgiving when you called. It was like the day after or 2 days after this happened. And I was just floored. I mean, I've seen this before, but it was in other countries, you know, not in our own country. So one of the things I remember is that you said, you know, they're handcuffing you. They handcuffed your husband at first, and he kept saying you have no legal right. I'm not in the warrant. So they were able to. They took the cuffs off him. What really impressed me, my husband has made it very clear it will not go well if this happens, and I keep telling him over and over again. The time to assert your rights is not when you're being handcuffed. It's not when you're being dragged out of your house. You know they're wrong. You know they have no legal right to do this. That is not the time to fight.
That's right.
Because it just gets worse. And your husband has told me before, he's like, listen, that's not who I am. He's the kind of guy who was like, no, you get your hands off my wife. I'm gonna fight for this. And he said, but there was just a calm that came over me and said, we just have to play this out.
Let this play out.
And man, but then you're sitting on the curb and you kept asking them over and over and over again, why are you here? Do you even know why you're here? And finally one of them answered.
Well, thank you for acknowledging my husband in that, because it was definitely one of the most challenging experiences of his life to be completely, you can't defend your family.
No.
You can't do it. You can't stop what's happening. So thank you for that. But at the crux of it all, in our home, we're all sitting on our couch together, and I asked an investigator, Strew from Mesa County, who was there to serve the warrant, why are you doing this? You know, what is it that you think deserves all of this? And this is what he said. I mean, he said, you connect people. And that's not illegal.
No.
And it wasn't on the warrant.
It's not. Well, I think your husband, you're both incredible, heroic individuals to go through this and continue to stand up and fight. But the fact that your husband was able to just, I mean, that is enormous courage. That he was able to just stand there, support you in a way that didn't cause more trouble, because that's what they want. They want us. They want us to get angry.
And be unhinged.
They want us to fight, and they want us to be unhinged. And you didn't.
I guarantee you, so they've never released the footage. We have requested the FOIA. We have FOIA'd many, many, many times. We've had some of the most prominent attorneys in the country do this on our behalf. The federal government refuses to release the video footage of our home, but I guarantee you, had I lost my mind or my husband had lost his mind, it would be on the front page everywhere.
It would be everywhere.
And so I absolutely agree with that. I think people really need to be mindful. And unfortunately, you really do have to have a plan in mind if they come to your home. And I literally talked to an elected official this morning who said he has already played that scenario out and made sure, like, he knows what he's going to do when the government or when the federal government, these agencies come to his door. And I just keep thinking how sad of a state we are in right now.
Those are the conversations.
Those are the conversations we have to have.
Yeah. We are going to be right back. We're going to have everybody on the couch talk more with Sherronna about what has happened since then. And they really woke up the wrong mama. We'll be right back on the Mom View. We've all heard the old saying, every vote counts, right? Well, maybe you think your vote couldn't possibly make a difference. Maybe you think your one vote is insignificant or irrelevant. You are not insignificant, and your one vote can have a huge impact. Moms like us care deeply about our children and grandchildren. Our culture, our values, the economy, and our freedoms are all extremely important to us. As moms, we must be engaged. We need to vote our values. Yes, every vote does count. And when we unite our one vote with the votes of moms all across the country, it's no longer just an election. It's a movement. Well, that was a story that would totally rock your world. But what's great about this story is that it just emboldened this mama. I want you guys to know that we're not in a good place, okay? Whatever you think we're going to go back to, that's not going to happen. Where we are is where we are. This is our now. We determine the future. So what we just have to decide is what we are going to do about it. And Sherronna did not sit down, back down, give up. She just, I guess, remobilized, dusted off her feet, stood up and said, Ain't no way you're holding me down. So after all of that, where are you at now?
Well, there's been a lot that's happened. That was 3 years ago. And I think the first thing that was necessary, and for anybody who finds themselves in this sort of position, they want you to be quiet.
Right.
That's the whole intention, is to disrupt your world so much that you don't think it's worth the cost. Right. And you go quiet and you go silent, and you just can't do that. We're not in those times anymore. We're in a war. I mean, our government has proven that they're actively working against us. Last week we learned, or a couple weeks ago now, we learned that over 247,000 illegal FISA warrants went out on American people. Mm-hmm. They are watching you. They're taking your personal information without your consent and without authorized warrants. They're spying on their own people. These are communist actions. This is not a free people that are governed by the supreme law anymore. And I think some of you guys have seen that for a long time, but I'm new to the party. And once I experienced it firsthand, we decided, my husband and I, we were doubling down. He was forced out of his career. So, I mean, there are consequences, but we think it's worth it. We need to stand up for our country. We need to stand up for what's right. We need to hold these goons accountable. They have never charged me with anything. That was 3 years ago. They've never given my stuff back. They've never given us the video footage. So we just have to keep hammering away until we finally have our day of justice. But in the meantime, we have to embolden the American population with regular nobodies like me. You have to stand up for what you want now. It's too easy to be distracted with Netflix. It's too easy to be distracted with the next new thing that's trying to prevent you from doing your civic duty. There's no other place to go, And so for us, it's been a matter of trying to get the loudest voice with the longest reach possible to let people know this is happening. I'm not unique, actually, at all. No. It's just that our situation has been that this is what we feel strongly. God allowed this to happen, and we're just going to go with it. And we're literally going to just trust Him for the outcome of this, because we don't have any other choice. I think every year we have this kind of conversation of what's our word for the year this year. And last year it was truly surrender. Surrender our hopes, our dreams, our vision, what we thought we were going to be doing with our lives, all this stuff. You make your plans, but the Lord directs your steps, and that's where we want to be. And I think that's why I love being with you guys. I know you've done the same thing.
Sherronna, I just want to say that too. That closing bit right here is so powerful, because when tragedies come our way, He uses it for His glory.
Right.
When the unexpected happens, He uses it as an inspiration to all. Yeah. And I mean, her story is so amazing. And if we look at these as opportunities to shine, opportunities to make a difference, it's easy for me to say that here. I didn't have my door busted down and my family terrorized, but when those...
You would have planned better. You'd have had cameras on the outside.
I do have cameras.
Well, we do now. Because of your story, we do now.
In fact, when I get done interviewing you on the podcast, and Kimberly, all of us said, we've got to have cameras at the front of our house, and we have them now.
Because
and
again, they don't want it on camera. They have not released your footage because you didn't do what they wanted you to do, but they looked bad. They don't want that. Right. There was something else that we didn't mention when we talked, and that was the fact that that you actually had FBI agents calling and apologizing.
So, yeah, there were other people that reached out across the state, across the country. Some were retired and just said, I can't believe what they've turned into. When they were in my home, there was one that was extremely apologetic. I felt very strongly towards the end of their time there at our house, because we kept questioning what they were doing. My husband was saying there's a big difference between lawful and legal.
Right.
And teaching our children on the couch. You talk about a homeschool session, you guys. My husband is going through the laws. He's going through the Constitution, and he's outlining to our kids why all of this is a violation of that. And they're all milling around listening to this. So there was definitely a sense of apology from several of them. One of them said, if it makes any difference at all, you have a beautiful family, which is just a ridiculous thing to say. I know, but they're trying to find a way out of this, what they've just done.
Comment.
It was. I was like, grow a spine.
Backhanded comment.
Yeah, grow a spine, get out of my house.
I have a problem with people that are in these positions that just follow orders. If you are just following orders, you are not doing your lawful duty. You are not doing your duty as a civilian. You're not doing your duty as a civic servant. And that's a problem. I mean, you raised your right hand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, to protect the rights that are given to us by God, that are protected within the Constitution. And if you're just following orders by tyrannical leaders who are not leaders, they're weak tyrants, which is exactly what they are, then you are at fault. You are part of the problem. And your story has inspired so many moms, I think, to make sure that, one, they are protected, two, that they have all of the information that they need, all of the video cameras and all of that, the preparedness, right? But also to step out on faith and courage. God wins in the end, and we have been given dominion on this earth to subdue it, right? And that means we have to walk by faith and not by feedback, walk by faith and not by fear. Fear is not of God. Fear is of the enemy. And that's what they want. They want to instill fear within us so that we don't do this,
right?
So that we don't come together and bound together.
And I think some of the positive outcome is your children, right? Like they see what's happening, and it inspires them. It inspires them to do something about it too. I always say, as funny, my daughter wants to be a human rights lawyer because she says, one of these days I'm gonna have to bail you out, mother.
Well, to that point, that's an excellent point. When your children see you doing what you believe in, and then they see that there's consequences, both good and negative, this has been a very positive consequence. And my kids, they learned more in that 3.5 hours than we would have ever been able to teach them from a textbook. And they no longer call us paranoid. They understand that a government that is so big, it can give you everything that you want, can also take everything you have. They're learning these principles firsthand. It's also really made us make sure that our children know the Constitution. They know their Bill of Rights. They know where government where government ends. It has to have an ending point. And these guys that are doing this stuff, there's a great book out called Ordinary Men. It's about Hitler's final solution, and it's an imperative book, I think, for Americans to be reading, especially those in law enforcement right now, because you will never be able to look at God and say, I was just following orders. We really do have the Nuremberg laws for a reason, because we've already gone down this path where men just obeyed, they didn't use their brain, they didn't think or consider. And the questions that we asked during that time of, do you even know why you're here? Do you even know who I am? What makes you think this is the right path forward? You know, why are you here? What is it you think that you're accomplishing by coming to my home this way? People really need to continue to have those conversations with them. Try not to lose your mind when it happens to you. But at the end of the day, God is really raising up strong. He's this generation that's going to come up, that's watching right now. They're going to be so powerful. They're going to be the next greatest generation. I believe it, because they're watching the demise of the country that they love right now through the weaponization of bureaucratic agencies.
This is something that I actually heard somebody else say it, and I say it in a lot of my speeches now, because I think people need to have hope. And, you know, all the different generations, you're the greatest generation. And they were raised on these stories of American patriotism and heroes, and I mean, just great, courageous things. So when the war came, of course, they were like, we're going to go out there and we're going to stand and fight for our freedoms. And so you had that great generation. And then after the war, you know, there was a lot of suffering. And so they wanted to make sure that their children didn't suffer. And so they gave them a lot of indulgences. And then we ended up, you know, with the hippies or the baby boomers. And then those baby boomers raised Gen X. And of course, the feminist movement came in, and the Gen X were the ones that were the latchkey kids. And we, you know, sat in the back of the station wagon. There were no seat belts.
That's
and
right.
We stayed out till the lights came on. And if we were thirsty, we drank out of the hose.
That's right.
And that's who we were. And then what did we do? We became so concerned with all the boogeymen out there that we isolated our children from the world, overprotected them from everything. And so then we had to get the millennial generation, and they don't know how to deal in the real world. And then, of course, the electronics come in, so they're living in a virtual world.
With the boogeymen.
With the boogeymen that we've handed to them. Right, exactly. And then Gen Z comes along. Now, here's something interesting about Gen Z. Is they're asking a lot of questions.
Yes.
They're like, something is not right. They don't know what, but they are very teachable and they are very freedom-minded. But then there's my grandchildren, that next generation. We started over. There's the alpha generation, and they will save us. But we have to lay that foundation just like you did. I mean, experience like that, nobody wishes it on anybody. But what your children and your family learned from that was invaluable. And it was something that gave all of us across the country something to look to and say, okay, now we need to make sure our kids know this.
I believe this is really true, because the kid, as bad as social media is as good as social media is.
That's right.
Like my 19-year-old, my 24-year-old, they're all listening to podcasts. Yes. Varied podcasts, Joe Rogan's, all of these different people who are looking at the culture, putting a finger to it and saying, something isn't right here. Right. And I do believe exactly what you're saying, Kimberly. They are figuring it out and they are speaking out. And, to Donald Trump, right? They're not coming after me, they're coming after you. And I think that's what a lot of the message is. If it can happen to you, it can happen to you.
And it can happen to the former president of the United States. It will happen to anyone.
Anything was a weaponization of government coming after a political opponent. It's him, and we see this happening. It's playing out. It's right on the TV for all of us to view.
It is fascinating too, because truly the presidency has always been protected. Right. It really has until Trump. They have hidden the secret sins of these presidents for decades. Right. It was just part of the job. So to literally see them turn, and there's no sacred zone anymore. No. Nothing is sacred right now in the United States, not the mother and not the president. Right. And I just think for that reason, we really do. We just have to be on our toes in a joyful way. This is our calling right now. Do you think that mothers are more prepared now to really hold the line and stand up for their children and do what's necessary to protect them? Or do you think we're still kind of in a transition?
No, I definitely think they want to, and they're ready. And I think there are a lot more that are. But I think there are a whole lot more who are still just like, what do I do?
Exactly. Well, with that,
or am I alone in this?
Yeah. Right.
I'm scared, maybe.
And so for me, as prior military, right, and grown up with my husband, not grown up, but my husband has been in the service for 20 years. My father was in the service, uncles and such forth. I understand the sacrifice of liberty. Liberty and freedom is not free. It always requires a very significant level of sacrifice. And what is your sacrifice that you are willing to put forward and to give for future generations of this nation? Yeah. If you are not willing to give anything for this country, everything for this country, for the future of your children, then you are going to lay down and be under the boot of tyranny. And that is not going to bode well for future when they come to you and say, Grandma, great-grandma, where were you when liberty hung in the balance? I can't. It makes me cry.
Yeah.
Right.
Where were you when liberty hung in the balance? Yeah. Did you fight your last breath to save it, or did you just bow down?
Well, I can live in a cave. I tell people this all the time. I don't want to, but it'll be the largest cave you've ever seen. I can live in a cave. If it comes down to my freedoms and living in a cave, I'm going to live in the cave. I will not bend. There are so many movies and films that have been so good when you watch them on the screen, and people are like, oh, that should not happen. And look at those great heroes. But when you see it in real life, they're like, where are they? They're absent. They don't see the connection. I know, Sherronna, that moms are awake. Yeah. They're waking up. They are concerned. They want to fight. They don't know how, and they are afraid. And that's the reason why we have to come together. That's why we do this show. That's why the reasons Moms for America exists. We have to unite together. It is about the Constitution. When you start with that document, you end with that document, and you win.
And I think women, they need a sense of sisterhood.
Exactly.
They need that togetherness. I mean, we thrive on those relationships. Right. So when we find a place like this, like the Mom View, Moms for America, all these moms across the country, it's like, hey, we're in this together. And it's very
friendship trains.
Yeah, it's very helpful. I
like that.
And I think that's the community that we're developing. Yeah, exactly. And it's very empowering.
I think it's a really great point you're bringing up, because there's ones like Sonia Shaw in Chino Valley, California, who are fighting a battle that people it's so difficult to understand. I mean, the letters she's received threatening her children now because she's on the school board and she's trying to protect these children from being sexualized, to Michelle Morrow. I mean, we've got to come around these ones who are willing to fight on our behalf and stand with them. We're not always going to understand the methodology of how they fight. We don't need to. We need to support these mothers who are taking up the mantle. We really do. And that's, I thought when we were talking earlier, you were going to mention that time when I said to you, I was so concerned Moms for America was going to pull away from me. One of the things I worried the most about was isolation.
Yeah.
And what did we do? We wrapped around.
He was like, are you still going to be my friend? And she was like, we are here for this. Let's go. Because, the reality is once you've caught their attention, you're doing something right. And so we need to stand by those people and defend them as much as we can.
The mark. And I want to stay over the mark. Sherronna, you're amazing. This is
joining us.
One of the best one of the best episodes ever. The real power of mom here. We're going to be right back to close out the show. What kind of America do you want to leave future generations? What do you want America to look like for your children and your grandchildren? Our nation is at a crossroads, and it will be us, the mothers of America, who will determine the future of our country. What we teach and nurture in the hearts of our children and how we vote will make all the difference. If you love God, respect life, honor family, and cherish freedom, then use your voice and be heard. We teach these values in our home. Let's secure them with our vote. Thank you for joining us today on the Mom View, a very powerful show on the couches here. So grateful that Sherronna was able to join us. And I hope that you were inspired by some of the things that you learned today. Make sure and follow us on Instagram at The Real Mom View, and check out our website, themomview.com, where you can get all of our episodes. And what do you guys think? Where do we go from here?
I think moms, please keep joining. Join Moms for America. You know, it's a great organization to be part of. You just heard. We won't leave you alone.
Yeah, we are stronger together, and we're here for you. Absolutely.
Lock arms, get phone numbers, no addresses, make a notebook, keep it together underneath your bed, your pillow, so you can contact anyone in case anything happens. Build a coalition within your circle of influence, and just support each other. And don't be afraid to cry and share emotions and be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a superpower, and it's so important. And I'm just so grateful for all of you, and all of you. Thank you.
Well, I do think Mom View is exactly what women are needing right now, to just hear truth talk. It's not so pretty all the time. It's not perfect by any means, but I think our goals are the same. We're definitely about protecting and defending our children and having a future for them. And so I'm so excited for you, Kimberly, and this organization, and that you even had the wisdom to listen to God and establish this 20 years ago. Thank you.
Well, it's that thing where you're sitting on the precipice and you're like, do I take that leap of faith?
Yes.
Or do I listen to my brain and run the other way like crazy?
It's a free dive.
I think this show has helped us realize running the other way, you're never going to win.
Yeah.
You've got to face it. Take that leap of faith. God will always be with you when you take that leap, and you did. And you are a dear friend, and there's no way in heck. In fact, when you were so afraid I was going to leave you, I was like, are you kidding? I want to join you.
Join America's mom.
You
are the ultimate American mother. I'm just honored to be with all of you all.
Well, you have empowered so many moms across the country, and I hope that you are all empowered today as much as we have been. This is always a joy for us to get together, and we are thrilled when we get to share the time with you. So again, follow us on Instagram at The Real Mom View, and check us out at themomview.com, where you can always catch any of the shows that you've missed, this show, and we want to hear from you.
Yes, please.
So you can share your mom view with us at themomview.com. Please do, whether it's a question, a comment, a grievance. We like those too. We'll bring it to the couch and we will address it. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on The Mom View.